Book 21. Odysseus strings his bow. The time had come. The goddess Athena, with her blazing eyes, inspired Penelope, Charis's daughter, wary, poised, to set the bow and the gleaming iron axes out before her suitors waiting in Odysseus's hall, to test their skill and bring their slaughter on. Up the steep stairs to her room she climbed, and grasped in a steady hand the curved key, fine bronze, with ivory half detached, and then with her chamber women made her way to a hidden storeroom far in the palace depths. And there they lay, the royal master's treasures, bronze, gold, and a wealth of hard-wrought iron, and there it lay as well, his back-sprung bow with its quiver bristling arrows, shafts of pain. Gifts from the old days, from a friend he'd met in Lacedaemon, Iphitus, Eurydice's gallant son. Once in Messene, the two struck up together. In sly Ortilochus's house, that time Odysseus went to collect a debt the whole realm owed him. For Messenian raiders had lifted flocks from Ithaca, 300 head in their oar-swept ships, the herdsmen too. So his father and island elders sent Odysseus off, young boy on a mission, a distant embassy made to right that wrong. Iphitus went there hunting the stock that he had lost, a dozen mares still nursing their hardy suckling mules, the same mares that would prove his certain death when he reached the son of Zeus, that iron heart. Heracles, the past master of monstrous works, who killed the man, a guest in his own house. Brutal, not a care for the wrathful eyes of God, or rites of hospitality he had spread before him. No, he dined him, then he murdered him, commandeered those hard-hoofed mares for the hero's own grange. Still on the trail of these, when he met Odysseus, Iphitus gave him the bow his father, mighty Eurydice, used to wield as a young man. But when he died, in his lofty house he left it to his son. In turn, Odysseus gave his friend a sharp sword and a rugged spear to mark the start of friendship, treasured ties that bind. But before they got to know the warmth of each other's board, the son of Zeus had murdered Iphitus, Eurydice's magnificent son, who gave the prince the bow. That great weapon, King Odysseus never took it abroad with him when he sailed off to war in his long black ships. He kept it stored away in his stately house, guarding the memory of a cherished friend, and only took that bow on hunts at home. Now, the lustrous queen soon reached the hidden vault and stopped at the oaken door sill, work an expert sanded smooth and true to the line some years ago, planting the door jambs snugly, hanging shining doors. At once she loosed the thong from around its hook, inserted the key, and aiming straight and true, shot back the bolts, and the rasping doors groaned as loud as a bull will bellow, champing grass at pasture. So as the key went home, those handsome double doors rang out now and sprang wide before her. She stepped onto a plank where chests stood tall, brimming with clothing scented sweet and cedar. Reaching, tiptoe, lifting the bow down off its peg, still secure in its burnished case that held it. Down she sank, laying the case across her knees, and dissolved in tears with a high, thin wail as she drew her husband's weapon from its sheath. Then, having wept and sobbed to her heart's content, off she went to the hall to meet her proud admirers, cradling her husband's backsprung bow in her arms, its quiver bristling arrows, shafts of pain. Her women followed, bringing a chest that held the bronze and the iron axes, trophies won by the master. That radiant woman, once she reached her suitors, drawing her glistening veil across her cheeks, paused now where a column propped the sturdy roof, with one of her loyal handmaids stationed either side, and delivered an ultimatum to her suitors. Listen to me, my overbearing friends, you who plague this palace night and day, drinking, eating us out of house and home, with lord and master absent, gone so long. The only excuse that you can offer is your zest to win me as your bride. So to arms, my gallants. Here is the prize at issue right before you. Look. I set before you the great bow of King Odysseus now. The hand that can string this bow with greatest ease, that shoots an arrow clean through all 12 axes, he is the man I follow, yes, forsaking this house where I was once bride. This gracious house so filled with the best that life can offer, I shall always remember it, that I know, even in my dreams. She turned to Eumaeus, ordered the good swineherd now to set the bow and the gleaming iron axes out before the suitors. He broke into tears as he received them, laid them down. The cowherd wept too, when he saw his master's bow, but Antinous wheeled on both and let them have it. Yokels, fools, you can't tell night from day. You mawkish idiots, why are you sniveling here? You're stirring up your mistress. Isn't she drowned in grief already? She's lost her darling husband. Sit down, eat in peace, or take your snuffling out of doors. But leave that bow right here. Our crucial test that makes or breaks us all. No easy game, I wager, to string his polished bow. Not a soul in the crowd can match Odysseus. What a man he was. I saw him once, remembering him to this day, though I was young and foolish way back then. Smooth talk. But deep in the suitor's heart, his hopes were bent on stringing the bow and shooting through the axes. Antinous, fated to be the first man to taste an arrow whipped from great Odysseus' hands. The king he mocked, at ease in the king's house, egging comrades on to mock him too. Amazing. Prince Telemachus waded in with a laugh. Zeus up there has robbed me of my wits. My own dear mother, sensible as she is, says she'll marry again, forsake our house. And look at me, laughing for all I'm worth, giggling like some fool. Step up, my friends. Here is the prize at issue right before you. Look, a woman who has no equal now in all Achaean country, neither in holy Pylos, nor in Argos or Mycenae. Not even Ithaca itself, or the loamy mainland. You know it well. Why sing my mother's praises? Come, let the games begin. No dodges, no delays, no turning back from the stringing of the bow. We'll see who wins, we will. I'd even take a crack at the bow myself. If I string it and shoot through all the axes, I'd worry less if my noble mother left our house with another man and left me here behind. Man enough to at last to win my father's splendid prizes. With that, he leapt to his feet and dropped his bright red cloak, slipping the sword and sword belt off his shoulders. First he planted the axes, digging a long trench, one for all, and trued them all to a line, then tamped the earth to bend them. Wonder took the revelers looking on, his work so firm, precise, though we'd never seen the axe's range before. He stood at the threshold, poised to try the bow. 3 times he made it shudder, straining to bend it. 3 times his power flagged. But his hopes ran high. He'd string his father's bow and shoot through every iron, and now, struggling with all his might for the 4th time, he would have strung the bow, but Odysseus shook his head and stopped him short despite his tensing zeal. God help me, the inspired prince cried out. Must I be a weakling, a failure all my life? Unless I'm just too young to trust my hands to fight off any man who rises up against me. Come, my betters, so much stronger than I am, try the bow and finish off the contest. He propped his father's weapon on the ground, tilting it up against the polished, well-hung doors, and resting a shaft aslant the bow's fine horn. Then back he went to the seat that he had left. Up, friends, Antinous called, taking over. One man after another left to right, starting from where the steward pours the wine. So Antinous urged and all agreed. The first man up was Leodes, Aenops' son, a seer who could see their futures in the smoke, who always sat by the glowing wine bowl, well back, the one man in the group who loathed their reckless ways, appalled by all their outrage. His turn first. Picking up the weapon now, and the swift arrow, he stood at the threshold, poised to try the bow, but failed to bend it. As soon as he tugged the string, his hands went slack, his soft, uncalloused hands, and he called back to the suitors. Friends, I can't bend it. Take it. Someone, try. Here is a bow to rob our best of life and breath, all our best contenders. Still, better be dead than live on here, never winning the prize that tempts us all, forever in pursuit, burning with expectation every day. If there's still a suitor here who hopes, who aches to marry Penelope, Odysseus' wife, just let him try the bow. He'll see the truth. He'll soon lay siege to another Argive woman, trailing her long robes, and shower her with gifts. And then our queen can marry the one who offers most, the man marked out by fate to be her husband. With those words, he thrust the bow aside, tilting it up against the polished, well-hung doors, and resting a shaft aslant the bow's fine horn. Then back he went to the seat that he had left. But Antinous turned on the seer, abuses flying. Leiades, what are you saying? What's got past your lips? What awful grisly nonsense. It shocks me to hear it. Here's a bow to rob our best of life and breath? Just because you can't string it? You're so weak? Clearly your genteel mother never bred her boy for the work of bending bows and shooting arrows. We have champions in our ranks to string it quickly. Hop to it, Melanthius. He barked at the goat herd. Rake the fire in the hall, pull up a big stool, heap it with fleece, and fetch the hefty ball of lard from the stores inside, so we young lords can heat and limber the bow and rub it down with grease before we try again and finish off the contest. The goat herd bustled about to rake the fire, still going strong. He pulled up a big stool, heaped it with fleece, and fetched the hefty ball of lard from the stores inside. And the young men limbered the bow, rubbing it down with hot grease, then struggled to bend it back, but failed. No use. They fell far short of the strength the bow required. Antinous still held off, dashing Eurymachus too, the ringleaders of all the suitors, head and shoulders the strongest of the lot. But now, the king's 2 men, the cowherd and the swineherd, had slipped out of the palace side by side, and great Odysseus left the house to join them. Once they were past the courtyard and the gates, he probed them deftly, surely. Cowherd, swineherd, what? Shall I blurt this out or keep it to myself? No, speak out. The heart inside me says so. How far would you go to fight beside Odysseus? Say he dropped like that from a clear blue sky and a god brought him back. Would you fight for the suitors or your king? Tell me how you feel inside your hearts. Father Zeus, the trusty cowherd shouted. Bring my prayer to pass. Let the master come. Some god guide him now. You'd see my power, my fighting arms in action. Eumaeus echoed his prayer to all the gods, that their wise king would soon come home again. Certain at last these 2 were loyal to the death. Odysseus reassured them quickly. I'm right here in the flesh, myself, and home at last, after bearing 20 years of brutal hardship. Now I know that all of my men, you 2 alone long for my return. From the rest I've heard, not one real prayer that I come back again. So now I'll tell you what's in store for you. If a god beats down the lofty suitors at my hands, I'll find you wives, both of you, grant you property, sturdy houses beside my own, and in my eyes you'll be comrades to Prince Telemachus, brothers from then on. Come, I'll show you something, living proof. Know me for certain, put your minds at rest. This scar, look, where a boar's white tusk gored me years ago, hunting on Parnassus, Autolycus' son and I. With that, pushing back his rags, he revealed the great scar, and the men gazed at it, scanned it, knew it well, broke into tears and threw their arms around their master, lost in affection, kissing his head and shoulders, and so Odysseus kissed their heads and hands. Now the sun would have set upon their tears if Odysseus had not called a halt himself. No more weeping. Come out of the house, a man might see us. Tell the men inside. Let's slip back in, singly, not in a pack. I'll go first, you're next. Here's our signal. When all the rest in there, our lordly friends, are dead against my having the bow and quiver, good Eumaeus, carry the weapon down the hall and put it in my hands. Then tell the serving women to lock the snugly fitted doors to their own rooms. If anyone hears from there the jolting blows and groans of men caught in our huge net, not one of them show her face. Sit tight. Keep to her weaving, not a sound. You, my good Felicius, here are your orders. Shoot the bolt at my courtyard's outer gate, lock it, lash it fast. With that command, the master entered his well-constructed house, and back he went to the stool that he had left. The king's 2 men in turn slipped in as well. Just now, Eurymachus held the bow in his hands, turning it over tip to tip before the blazing fire to heat the weapon. But he failed to bend it even so, and the suitor's high heart groaned to bursting. A black day, he exclaimed in wounded pride. A blow to myself, a blow to each man here. It's less the marriage that mortifies me now. That's galling too, but lots of women are left, some in sea-girt Ithaca, some in other cities. What breaks my heart is the fact we fall so short of great Odysseus' strength we cannot string his bow. A disgrace to ring in the ears of men to come. Eurymachus, Eupeithes' son Antinous countered. It will never come to that, as you well know. Today is a feast day up and down the island in honor of the archer god. Who flexes bows today? Set it aside. Rest easy now. And all the axes, let's just leave them implanted where they are. Trust me, no one's about to crash the gates of Laertes' son and carry off these trophies. Steward, pour some drops for the god in every cup. We'll tip the wine, then put the bow to bed. And first thing in the morning, have Melanthius bring the pick of his goats from all his herds, so we can burn the thighs to Apollo, god of archers, then try the bow and finish off the contest. Welcome advice. And again they all agreed. Harold sprinkled water over their hands for rinsing. The young men brimmed the mixing bowls with wine. They tipped first drops for the god in every cup, then poured full rounds for all. And now, once they tipped libations out and drunk their fill, the king of craft, Odysseus, said with all his cunning, "Listen to me, you lords who court the noble queen. I have to say what the heart inside me urges. I appeal especially to Eurymachus and you, brilliant Antinous, who spoke so shrewdly now. Give the bow a rest for today. Leave it to the gods. At dawn, the archer god will grant victory to the man he favors most. For the moment, give me the polished bow now, won't you? So to amuse you all, I can try my hand, my strength. Is the force still alive inside these gnarled limbs? Or has a life of roaming, years of rough neglect destroyed long ago?" Modest words that sent them all into hot, indignant rage, fearing he just might string the polished bow. So Antinous rounded on him, dressed him down. "Not a shred of sense in your head, you filthy drifter. Not content to feast at your ease with us, the island's pride? Never denied your full share of the banquet, never. You can listen on in our secrets. No one else can eavesdrop on our talk, no tramp, no beggar. The wine has overpowered you, heady wine, the ruin of many another man, whoever gulps it down and drinks beyond his limit. Wine, it drove the centaur, famous Eurydion, mad in the halls of lion-hearted Pirithous. There to visit the Lapiths, crazed with wine, the headlong centaur bent to his ugly work in the prince's own house. His hosts sprang up, seized with fury, dragged him across the forecourt, flung him out of doors, hacking his nose and ears off with their knives, no mercy. The creature reeled away, still blind with drink, his heart like a wild storm, loaded with all the frenzy in his mind. And so the feud between mortal men and centaurs had its start. But the drunk was first to bring disaster on himself by drowning in his cups. You too. I promise you no end of trouble if you should string that bow. You'll meet no kindness in our part of the world. We'll sail you off in a black ship to Echidus, the mainland king who wrecks all men alive. Nothing can save you from his royal grip, so drink, but hold your peace. Don't take on the younger, stronger men." Antinous, watchful Penelope, stepped in. How impolite it would be, how wrong, to scant whatever guest Telemachus welcomes to his house. You really think, if the stranger trusts so to his hands and strength that he strings Odysseus' great bow, he'll take me home and claim me as his bride? He never dreamed of such a thing, I'm sure. Don't let that ruin the feast for any reveler here. Unthinkable. Nothing could be worse. Polybus' son, Eurymachus, had an answer. "Wise Penelope, daughter of Icarius, do we really expect the man to wed you? Unthinkable, I know. But we do recoil at the talk of men and women. One of the island's meaner sort will mutter, 'Look at the riffraff courting a king's wife. Weaklings, look, they can't even string his bow.' But along came this beggar, drifting out of the blue, strung his bow with ease and shot through all the axes. Gossip will fly, we'll hang our heads in shame." "Shame?" Alert Penelope protested. "How can you hope for any public fame at all? You who disgrace, devour a great man's house and home. Why hang your heads in shame over next to nothing? Our friend here is a strapping, well-built man and claims to be the son of a noble father. Come, hand him the bow now, let's just see. I tell you this, and I'll make good my word. If he strings the bow and Apollo grants him glory, I'll dress him in shirt and cloak, in handsome clothes. I'll give him a sharp lance to fight off men and dogs, give him a two-edged sword and sandals for his feet, and send him off wherever his heart desires." "Mother," Prince Telemachus broke in now, "my father's bow, no Achaean on earth has more right than I to give it or withhold it as I please. While the lords in Ithaca's rocky heights, or the islands facing Elis grazed by horses, not a single one will force or thwart my will, even if I decide to give our guest this bow, a gift outright, to carry off himself. So, mother, go back to your quarters. Tend to your own tasks, the distaff and the loom, and keep the women working hard as well. As for the bow now, men will see to that, but I most of all. I hold the reins of power in this house." Astonished, she withdrew to her own room. She took to heart the clear good sense in what her son had said. Climbing up to the lofty chamber with her women, she fell to weeping for Odysseus, her beloved husband, till watchful Athena sealed her eyes with welcome sleep. And now the loyal swineherd had lifted up the bow, was taking it toward the king, when all the suitors burst out in an ugly uproar through the palace. Rash young bullies, this or that one heckling, "Where on earth are you going with that bow? You grubby swineherd, are you crazy? The speedy dogs you reared will eat your corpse. Out there with your pigs, out in the cold alone. If only Apollo and all the gods shied down on us." Eumaeus froze in his tracks, put down the bow, panicked by every outcry in the hall. Telemachus shouted too from the other side, and full of threats. "Carry on with the bow, old boy. If you serve too many masters, you'll soon suffer. Look sharp, or I'll pelt you back to your farm with flying rocks. I may be younger than you, but I'm much stronger. If only I had that edge in fists and brawn over all the courting crowd, I'd soon dispatch them, licking their wounds at last, clear of our palace where they plot their vicious plots." His outbursts sent them all into gales of laughter, blithe and obvious, that dissolved their pique against the prince. The swineherd took the bow, carried it down the hall to his ready, waiting king, and standing by him, placed it in his hands. Then he called the nurse aside and whispered, "Good Eurycleia, Telemachus commands you now to lock the snugly fitted doors to your own rooms. If anyone hears from there the jolting blows and groans of men caught in our huge net, not one of you show your face. Sit tight. Keep to your weaving, not a sound." That silenced the old nurse. She barred the doors that led from the long hall. The cowherd quietly bounded out of the house to lock the gates at the high stockaded court. Under the portico lay a cable, ship's tough gear. He lashed the gates with this, then slipped back in and ran and sat on the stool that he just left, eyes riveted on Odysseus. Now he held the bow in his own hands, turning it over tip to tip, testing it this way, that way, fearing worms had bored through the weapon's horn with the master gone abroad. A suitor would glance at his neighbor, jeering, taunting. "Look at our connoisseur of bows. Sly old fox, maybe he's got bows like it stored in his house. That or he's bent on making one himself. Look how he twists and turns it in his hands. The clever tramp means trouble." "I wish him luck," some cocksure lord chimed in. "As good as luck in bending back that weapon." So they mocked, but Odysseus, mastermind in action, once he'd handled the great bow and scanned every inch, then like an expert singer skilled at lyre and song, who strains a string to a new peg with ease, making the pliant sheep gut fast at either end. So with his virtuoso ease, Odysseus strung his mighty bow. Quickly his right hand plucked the string to test its pitch, and under his touch it sang out clear and sharp as a swallow's cry. Horror swept through the suitors, faces blanching white, and Zeus cracked the sky with a bolt, his blazing sign, and the great man who had borne so much rejoiced at last that the son of cunning Cronus flung that omen down for him. He snatched a winged arrow lying bare on the board. The rest still bristled deep inside the quiver, soon to be tasted by all the feasters there. Setting shaft on the hand grip, drawing the notch and bowstring back, right from his stool, just as he sat but aiming straight and true, he let fly. And never missing an axe from the first axe handle, clean on through to the last and out, the shaft with its weighted brazen head shot free. "Telemachus," Odysseus took his son and said, "Your guest, sitting here in your house, has not disgraced you. No missing the mark, look, and no long labor spent to string the bow. My strength's not broken yet, not quite so frail as the mocking suitors thought. But the hour has come to serve our masters right, supper in broad daylight, then to other revels, song and dancing, all that crowns a feast." He paused with a warning nod, and at that sign, Prince Telemachus, son of King Odysseus, girding his sharp sword on, clamping hand to spear, took his stand by a chair that flanked his father, his bronze spear point glinting now like fire. Book 22. Slaughter in the Hall. Now stripping back his rags, Odysseus, master of craft and battle, vaulted onto the great threshold, gripping his bow and quiver, bristling arrows, and poured his flashing shafts before him, loose at his feet, and thundered out to all the suitors. Look, your crucial test is finished now at last, but another target's left that no one's hit before. We'll see if I can hit it. Apollo, give me glory. With that he trained a stabbing arrow on Antinous, just lifting a gorgeous golden loving cup in his hands, just tilting the two-handled goblet back to his lips, about to drain the wine, and slaughter the last thing on the suitor's mind. Who could dream that one foe in that crowd of feasters, however as great his power, would bring down death on himself in black doom? But Odysseus aimed and shot Antinous square in the throat, and the point went stabbing clean through the soft neck and out. And off to the side he pitched. The cup dropped from his grasp as the shaft sank home, and the man's lifeblood came spurting from his nostrils. Thick red jets. A sudden thrust of his foot, he kicked away the table. Food showered across the floor, the bread and meat soaked in a swirl of bloody filth. The suitors burst into uproar all throughout the house when they saw their leader down. They leapt from their seats, milling about, desperate, scanning the stone walls. Not a shield in sight, no rugged spear to seize. They wheeled on Odysseus, lashing out in fury. Stranger, shooting at men will cost your life. Your game is over. You shot your last. You'll never escape your own headlong death. You've killed the best in Ithaca, our fine prince. Vultures will eat your corpse. Groping, frantic, each one persuading himself the guest had killed the man by chance. Poor fools, blind to the fact that all their necks were in the noose, their doom sealed. With a dark look, the wily fighter Odysseus shouted back, "You dogs, you never imagined I returned from Troy, so cocksure that you bled my house to death, ravishing my serving women, wooed my wife behind my back while I was still alive. No fear of the gods who rule the skies up there, no fear that men's revenge might arrive someday. Now all your necks are in the noose, your doom is sealed." Terror gripped them all, blanched their faces white, each man glancing wildly, how to escape his instant death. Only Eurymachus had the breath to venture. "If you're truly Odysseus of Ithaca home at last, you're right to accuse these men of what they've done. So much reckless outrage here in your palace, so much on your lands. But here he lies, quite dead, and he incited it all. Antinous. Look, the man who drove us all to crime. Not that he needed marriage, craved it so, he'd bigger game in mind, though Zeus barred his way. He'd lorded over Ithaca's handsome country king himself, once he'd lain in wait for your son and cut him down. But now he's received the death that you deserved. So spare your own people. Later we'll recoup your costs with a tax laid down upon the land, covering all we ate and drank inside your halls. And each of us here will pay full measure too, 20 oxen in value, bronze and gold we'll give until we melt your heart. Before we've settled, who on earth could blame you for your rage?" But the battlemaster kept on glaring, seething. "No, Eurymachus, not if you paid me all your father's wealth, all you possess now, and all that could pour in from the world's end. No, not even then would I stay my hands from slaughter till all you suitors had paid for all your crimes. Now, life or death, your choice. Fight me or flee if you hope to escape your sudden bloody doom. I doubt one man in the lot will save his skin." His men shook their knees, their hearts too, but Eurymachus spoke again, now to the suitors. "Friends, this man will never restrain his hands, invincible hands. Now that he sees that polished bow and quiver, look, he'll shoot from the sill until he's killed us all. So fight, call up the joy of battle, swords out, tables lifted, block his arrows, winging death. Charge him in a pack. Try to rout the man with the sill, doors. Race through town and sound an alarm at once. Our friend would soon see he shot his bolt." Brave talk. He drew his two-edged sword, bronze, honed for the kill, and hurled himself at the king with a raw, savage cry. In the same breath that Odysseus loosed an arrow, ripping his breast beside the nipple so hard it lodged in the man's liver. Out of his grasp, the sword dropped to the ground. Over his table, head over heels, he tumbled, doubled up, flinging his food and his two-handled cup across the floor. He smashed the ground with his forehead, writhing in pain, both feet flailing out, and his high seat tottered. The mist of death came swirling down his eyes. Amphinomus rushed the king in all his glory, charging him face to face, a slashing sword drawn. If only he could force him clear of the doorway now. But Telemachus, too quick, stabbed the man from behind, plunging his bronze spear between the suitor's shoulders, and straight on through his chest the point came jutting out. Down he went with a thud, his forehead slammed the ground. Telemachus swerved aside, leaving his long spear shaft lodged in Amphinomus, fearing some suitor just might lunge in from behind as he tugged the shaft, impale him with a sword or hack him down, crouching over the corpse. He went on the run, reached his father at once, and halting right beside him let fly. Father, now I'll get you a shield and a pair of spears, a helmet of solid bronze to fit your temples. I'll arm myself on the way back and hand out arms to the swineherd, arm the cowherd too. We better fight equipped. Run, fetch them, the wily captain urged, while I've got arrows left to defend me, or they'll force me from the doors while I fight on alone. Telemachus moved to his father's orders smartly. Off he ran to the room where the famous arms lay stored, took up 4 shields, 8 spears, 4 bronze helmets, ridged with horsehair crests and loaded with these, ran back to reach his father's side in no time. The prince was first to case himself in bronze, and his servants followed suit, both harnessed up, and all 3 flanked Odysseus, mastermind of war, and he, as long as he'd arrows left to defend himself, kept picking suitors off in the palace one by one, and down they went, corpse on corpse in droves. Then, when the royal archer's shafts ran out, he leaned his bow on a post of massive doors, where walls of the hallway catch the light, and armed. Across his shoulder he slung a buckler 4 plies thick. Over his powerful head he set a well-forged helmet, the horsehair crest atop it tossing, bristling terror, and grasped 2 rugged lances tipped with fiery bronze. Now a side door was fitted into the main wall, right at the edge of the great hall's stone sill, and led to a passage always shut by good tight boards. But Odysseus gave the swineherd strict commands to stand hard by the side door, guard it well, the only way the suitors might break out. Agelaus called to his comrades with a plan. Friends, can't someone climb through the hatch? Tell men outside to sound the alarm. Be quick. Our guest would soon see he'd shot his last. The goatherd Melanthius answered, Not a chance, my lord. The door of the courtyard's much too near. Dangerous, too. The mouth of the passage cramped. One strong man could block us, one and all. No, I'll fetch you some armor to harness on, out of the storeroom there. Nowhere else, I'm sure. The king and his gallant son have stowed their arms. With that, the goatherd clambered up through the smoke ducts high on the wall and scurried into Odysseus' storeroom, bundled a dozen shields, as many spears and helmets ridged with horsehair crests, and loaded with these, rushed back down to the suitors, quickly issued arms. Odysseus' knees shook, his heart too, when he saw them buckling on their armor, brandishing long spears. Here was a battle looming. Well he knew. He turned at once to Telemachus, warnings flying. A bad break in the fight, my boy. One of the women's tipped the odds against us. Or could it be the goatherd? My fault, father, the cool, clear prince replied. The blame's all mine. That snug door to the vault, I left it ajar. They've kept a better watch than I. Go, Eumaeus. Shut the door to the storeroom. Check and see if it's one of the women's tricks, or Dolius' son Melanthius. He's our man, I'd say. Even as they conspired, back the goatherd climbed to the room to fetch more burnished arms, but Eumaeus spotted him, quickly told his king who stood close by. Odysseus, wily captain, there he goes again, the infernal nuisance, just as we suspected. Back to the storeroom. Give me a clear command. Do I kill the man? If I can take him down, or drag him back to you, here, to pay in full, for the vicious work he's plotted in your house. Odysseus, master of tactics, answered briskly. I and the prince will keep these brazen suitors crammed in the hall, for all their battle fury. You 2 wrench Melanthius' arms and legs behind him, fling him down in the storeroom, lash his back to a plank, and strap a twisted cable fast to the scoundrel's body. Hoist him up a column until he hits the rafters, let him dangle in agony still alive, for a good long time. They hung on his orders, keen to do his will. Off they ran to the storeroom, unseen by him inside. Melanthius, rummaging after arms, deep in a dark recess as the two men took their stand, either side of the doorposts, poised till the goatherd tried to cross the door sill. One hand clutching a crested helmet, the other an ample old buckler blotched with mildew. The shield Laertes bore as a young soldier once, but there it lay for ages. Seams on the handstraps split. Quick, they rushed him, seized him, haled him back by the hair, flung him down on the floor, writhing with terror, bound him hand and foot with a chafing cord, wrenched his limbs back till the joints locked tight, just as Laertes' cunning son commanded. They strapped a twisting cable round his body, hoisted him up a column until he hit the rafters. Then you mocked him, Eumaeus, my good swineherd. Now stand guard through the whole night, Melanthius, stretched out on a soft bed fit for you, your highness. You're bound to see the morning rise up from the ocean, mounting her golden throne, at just the hour you always drive in goats to feast the suitors in the hall. So they left him, trussed in his agonizing sling. They clapped on armor again, shut the gleaming doors, and ran to rejoin Odysseus, mastermind of war. And now as the ranks squared off, breathing fury, for at the sill confronted a larger, stronger force, arrayed inside the hall. Now Zeus's daughter Athena, taking the build and voice of Mentor, swept in, and Odysseus, thrilled to see her, cried out, "Rescue us, Mentor. Now it's life or death. Remember your old comrade, all the service I offered you. We were boys together." So he cried, yet knew in his bones it was Athena, driver of armies. But across the hall the suitors brayed against her. Agilus, first, his outburst full of threats. "Mentor, never let Odysseus trick you into siding with him to fight against the suitors. Here's our plan of action, and we will see it through. Once we've killed them both, the father and the son, we'll kill you too, for all you're bent on doing here in the halls. You'll pay with your own head. And once our swords have stopped your violence cold, all your property, all in your house, your fields, we'll lump it all with Odysseus's rich estate, and never let your sons live on in your halls, or free your wife and daughters to walk through town." Naked threats, and Athena hit new heights of rage. She lashed out at Odysseus now with blazing accusations. "Where is it gone, Odysseus, your power, your fighting heart, the great soldier who fought for famous white-armed Helen, battling Trojans 9 long years, non-stop, no mercy, mowing their armies down in grueling battle? You who seized the broad streets of Troy with your fine strategic stroke, how can you, now that you've returned to your own house, your own wealth, bewail the loss of your combat strength in a war with suitors? Come, old friend, stand by me. You'll see action now. See how Mentor, the son of Alchemist, that brave fighter, kills your enemies, pays you back for service." Rousing words, but she gave no all-out turning of the tide, not yet. She kept on testing Odysseus and his gallant son, putting their force and fighting heart to proof. For all the world like a swallow in their sight, she flew on high to perch on the great hall's central roof beam black with smoke. But the suitors closed ranks, commanded now by Damastor's son, Agilus, flanked by Euronymous, Demoptolemus, and Amphimedon. Pisander, Polyctor's son, and Polybus ready, waiting, head and shoulders the best and bravest of the lot, still left to fight for their lives, now that pelting shafts had killed the rest. Agilus spurred his comrades on with battle plans. "Friends, at last the man's invisible hands are useless. Mentor has mouthed some empty boasts and flitted off. Just 4 are left to fight at the front doors. So now, no wasting your long spears, all at a single hurl. Just 6 of us launch out in the first wave. If Zeus is willing, we may hit Odysseus, carry off the glory. The rest are nothing once the captain's down." At his command, concentrating their shots, all 6 hurled as one, but Athena sent the whole salvo wide of the mark. One of them hit the jamb of the great hall's doors, another the massive door itself, and the heavy bronze point of a third ashen javelin crashed against the wall. Seeing his men untouched by the suitors' flurry, steady Odysseus leapt to take command. "Friends, now it's for us to hurl at them, I say, onto this ruck of suitors. Topping all their crimes, they're mad to strip the armor off our bodies." Taking aim at the ranks, All four let fly as one of the lances struck home. Odysseus killed Telemachus. Telemachus killed Euryades, the swineherd, Elatus, and the cowherd cut Pisander down in blood. They bit the dust of the broad floor all as one. Back to the great hall's far recess, the others shrank as the four rushed in and plucked up spears from corpses. And again the suitors hurled their whetted shafts, but Athena sent the better part of the salvo wide. One of them hit the jamb of the great hall's doors, another the massive door itself, and the heavy bronze points of a third ashen javelin crashed against the wall. True. Amphimedon nicked Telemachus on the wrist. The glancing blade just barely broke his skin. Ctesippus sent a long spear sailing over Eumaeus' buckler, grazing his shoulder blade, but the weapon skittered off and hit the ground. And again those led by the brilliant battle master hurled their razor spears at the suitors' ranks, and now Odysseus, raider of the cities, hit Eurydamas. Telemachus hit Amphimedon, Eumaeus Polybus, and the cowherd stabbed Ctesippus right in the man's chest and triumphed over his body. Love your mockery, do you, son of that blowhard Polytherses? No more shooting off your mouth, you idiot. Such big talk. Leave the last word to the gods. They're much stronger. Take this spear, this guest gift, for the cow's hoof you once gave King Odysseus begging in his house. So the master of longhorn cattle had his say, as Odysseus, fighting at close quarters, ran Agilus through with a long lance. Telemachus speared Leocritus, so deep in the groin the bronze came punching out his back, and the man crashed headfirst, slamming the ground full face. And now Athena, looming out of the rafters high above them, brandished her man-destroying shield of thunder, terrifying the suitors out of their minds, and down the hall they panicked, wild like herds stampeding, driven mad as darting gadfly strikes in the late spring when the long days come round. The attackers struck like eagles, crook-clawed, hook-beaked, swooping down from a mountain ridge to harry smaller birds that skim across the flat land, cringing under the clouds, but the eagles plunged in fury, ripped their lives out hopeless, never a chance of flight or rescue. And people loved the sport, so the attackers routed suitors headlong down the hall, wheeling into the slaughter, slashing left and right, and grisly screams broke from skulls cracked open, the whole floor awash with blood. Leides now, he flung himself at Odysseus, clutched his knees, crying out to the king with a sudden, winging prayer. I hug your knees, Odysseus, mercy, spare my life. Never, I swear, did I harass any woman in your house. Never a word, a gesture, nothing. No, I tried to restrain the suitors, whoever did such things. They wouldn't listen, keep their hands to themselves, so reckless, so they earned their shameful fate. But I was just their prophet, my hands are clean. I'm to die their death. Look at the thanks I get for years of service. A killing look, and the wry soldier answered, Only a priest, a prophet for this mob, you say? How hard you must have prayed in my own house that the heady day of my return would never dawn. My dear wife would be yours, would bear your children. For that there's no escape from grueling death. You die. And snatching up in one powerful hand a sword left on the ground, Agilus dropped it when he fell. Odysseus hacked the prophet square across the neck, and the praying head went tumbling in the dust. Now one was left, trying still to escape black death. Phemius, Turpus' son, the bard who always performed among the suitors. They forced the man to sing. There he stood, backing into the side door, still clutching his ringing lyre in his hands. His mind in turmoil torn. What should he do? Steal from the hall and crouch at the altar stone of Zeus, who guards the court, where time and again Odysseus and Laertes burned the long thighs of oxen, or throw himself on the master's mercy, clasp his knees. That was the better way, or so it struck him, yes, grasp the knees of Laertes' royal son. And so, cradling his hollow lyre, he laid it on the ground between the mixing bowl and the silver-studded throne. Then rushed up to Odysseus, yes, and clutched his knees, singing out to his king with a stirring winged prayer. I hug your knees, Odysseus, mercy, spare my life. What a grief it will be to you for all the years to come if you kill the singer now, who sings for gods and men. I taught myself the craft, but a god has planted deep in my spirit all the paths of song. Songs I'm fit to sing for you, as for a god. Calm your bloodlust now. Don't take my head. He'd bear me out. Your own dear son Telemachus, never of my own will, never for any gain did I perform in your house, singing after the suitors had their feasts. They were too strong, too many, they forced me to come and sing. I had no choice. The inspired Prince Telemachus heard his pleas, and quickly said to his father close beside him, Stop, don't cut him down. This one's innocent. So is the herald Medon, the one who always tended me in the house when I was little. Spare him too. Unless he's dead by now, killed by Philoetius or Eumaeus here, or ran into you rampaging through the halls. The herald picked up his anxious ears at that. Cautious soul, he cowered trembling under a chair, wrapped in an oxhide freshly stripped to dodge black death. He jumped in a flash from there, threw off the smelly hide, and scuttling up to Telemachus, clutching his knees. The herald begged for life in words that fluttered. Here I am, dear boy, spare me. Tell your father, flushed with victory, not to kill me with his sword. Enraged as he is with these young lords who bled his palace white and showed you no respect, the reckless fools. Breaking into a smile, the canny Odysseus reassured him. Courage. The prince has pulled you through. He's saved you now. So you can take it to heart and tell the next man too. Clearly doing good puts doing bad to shame. Now leave the palace. Go and sit outside, out in the courtyard, clear of the slaughter. You and the bard with all his many songs. Wait till I've done some household chores that call for my attention. The two men scurried out of the house at once and crouched at the altar stone of mighty Zeus, glancing left and right, fearing death would strike at any moment. Odysseus scanned his house to see if any man still skulked alive, still hoped to avoid black death. But he found them one and all in blood and dust, great halls of them down and out like fish that spearmen drag from the churning gray surf and looped in coiling nets and fling ashore on a sweeping hook of beach some noble catch, heaped on the sand, twitching, lusting for fresh salt sea, but the sun god hammers down and burns their lives out. So the suitors lay in heaps, corpse covering corpse. At last the seasoned fighter turned to his son. Telemachus, go. Call the old nurse here. I must tell her all that's on my mind. Telemachus ran to his father's bidding, shook the women's doors, calling Eurycleia, Come out now, up with you, good old woman. You who watch over all the household hands, quick, my father wants you, needs to have a word. Crisp command that left the old nurse hushed. She spread the doors to the well-constructed hall, slipped out in haste, and the prince led her on. She found Odysseus in the thick of slaughtered corpses, splattered with bloody filth like a lion that's devoured some ox of the field and lopes home, covered with blood. His chest streaked, both jaws glistening, dripping red, a sight to strike terror. So Odysseus looked now, splattered with gore, his thighs, his fighting hands, and she, when she saw the corpses, all the pooling blood, was about to lift a cry of triumph. Here was a great exploit. Look. But the soldier held her back and checked her zeal, with warnings winging home. Rejoice in your heart, old woman, peace. No cries of triumph now. It's unholy to glory over the bodies of the dead. These men the doom of the gods has brought low, and their own indecent acts. They'd no regard for any man on earth, good or bad, who chanced to come their way. And so, thanks to their reckless work, they met this shameful fate. Quickly, report in full on the women in my halls, who are disloyal to me, who are guiltless. Surely, child, his fondled nurse replied. Now here's the truth. 50 women you have inside your house, women we've trained to do their duties well, to card the wool and bear the yoke of service. Some dozen and all went tramping to their shame, thumbing their noses at me, at the queen herself. And Telemachus, just now come of age, his mother would never let the boy take charge of the maids. But let me climb to her well-lit room upstairs and tell your wife the news. Some god has put the woman fast asleep. Don't wake her yet, the crafty man returned. You tell those women to hurry here at once, just the ones who've shamed us all along. Away the old nurse bustled through the house to give the women orders, rush them to the king. Odysseus called Telemachus over, both herdsmen too, with strict commands. Start clearing away the bodies. Make the women pitch in too. Chairs and tables, scrub them down with sponges, rinse them clean. And once you put the entire house in order, march the women out of the great hall, between the round house and the courtyard's strong stockade, and hack them with your swords, slash out all their lives. Blot out of their minds the joys of love they relished under the suitors' bodies, rutting on the sly. The women crowded in, huddling all together, wailing convulsively, streaming live warm tears. First they carried out the bodies of the dead and propped them under the courtyard colonnade, standing them one against another. Odysseus shouted commands himself, moving things along, and they kept bearing out the bodies. They were forced. Next, they scrubbed down the elegant chairs and tables, washed them with sopping sponges, rinsed them clean. Then Telemachus and the herdsmen scraped smooth the packed earth floor of the royal house with spades as the women gathered up the filth and piled it outside. And then, at last, once the entire house was put in order, they marched the women out of the great hall, between the round house and the courtyard's strong stockade, crammed them into a dead end. No way out from there. And stern Telemachus gave the men their orders. No clean death for the likes of them, by God. Not from me. They showered abuse on my head. My mother's too. You sluts, the suitors as whores. With that, taking a cable used on a dark prowed ship, he coiled it over the roundhouse, lashed it fast to a tall column, hoisting it up so high no toes could touch the ground. Then, as doves or thrushes beating their spread wings against some snare rigged up in thickets, flying in for a cozy nest but a grisly bed receives them, so the women's heads were trapped in a line, nooses yanking their necks up, one by one, so they all might die a pitiful, ghastly death. They kicked up heels for a little, not for long. Melanthius, they hauled him out through the doorway into the court, lopped his nose and ears with a ruthless knife, tore his genitals for the dogs to eat raw, and in manic fury hacked off hands and feet. Then, once they'd washed their own hands and feet, they went inside again to join Odysseus. Their work was done with now. But the king turned to devoted Euryclea, saying, "Bring sulfur, nurse, to scour all this pollution. Bring me fire, too, so I can fumigate the house. And call Penelope here with all her women. Tell all the maids to come back at once." "Well said, my boy," his old nurse replied. "Right to the point. But wait, let me fetch you a shirt and cloak to wrap you. No more dawdling round the palace. Nothing but rags to cover those broad shoulders. It's a scandal." "Fire first," the good soldier answered. "Light me a fire to purify this house." The devoted nurse snapped to his command, brought her master fire and brimstone. Odysseus purged his palace, halls and court with cleansing fumes. Then, back through the royal house the old nurse went to tell the women the news and bring them in at once. They came crowding out of their quarters, torch in hand, flung their arms around Odysseus, hugged him, home at last, and kissed his head and shoulders, seized his hands, and he, overcome by a lovely longing, broke down and wept. Deep in his heart, he knew them one and all. Book 23. The Great Rooted Bed. Up to the rooms the old nurse clambered, chuckling all the way, to tell the queen her husband was here now, home at last. Her knees bustling, feet shuffling over each other, till hovering at her mistress's head she spoke. "Penelope, child, wake up and see for yourself, with your own eyes, all you dreamed of all your days. He's here, Odysseus, he's come home at long last. He's killed the suitors, swaggering young brutes who plagued his house, wolfed his cattle down, rode roughshod over his son." "Dear old nurse," wary Penelope replied, "the gods have made you mad. They have that power, putting lunacy into the clearest head around, or setting a half-wit on the path to sense. They've unhinged you, and you were once so sane. Why do you mock me? Haven't I wept enough, telling such wild stories, interrupting my sleep? Sweet sleep that held me, sealed my eyes just now. Not once have I slept so soundly since the day Odysseus sailed away to see that cursed city. Destroy, I call it. I hate to say its name. Now down you go, back to your own quarters. If any other woman of mine had come to me, rousing me out of sleep with such a tale, I'd have her bundled back to her room in pain. It's only your old gray head that spares you that." "Never," the fond old nurse kept pressing on. "Dear child, I'd never mock you. No, it's all true. He's here. Odysseus. He's come home, just as I tell you. He's the stranger they all manhandled in the hall. Telemachus knew he was here for days and days, but he knew enough to hide his father's plans so he could pay those vipers back in kind. Penelope's heart burst in joy. She leapt from bed, her eyes streaming tears. She hugged the old nurse and cried out with an eager, winging word. Please, dear one, give me the whole story. If he's really home again, just as you tell me, how did he get those shameless suitors in his clutches, single-handed braving an army always camped inside? I have no idea, the devoted nurse replied. I didn't see it. I didn't ask. All I heard was the choking groans of men cut down in blood. We crouched in terror, a dark nook of our quarters, all of us locked tight behind those snug doors, till your boy Telemachus came and called me out. His father rushed him there to do just that. Then I found Odysseus in the thick of slaughtered corpses. There he stood, and all around him, over the beaten floor, the bodies sprawled in heaps, lying on one another. How it would have thrilled your heart to see him, splattered with bloody filth, a lion with his kill. And now they're all stacked at the courtyard gates. He's lit a roaring fire. He's purifying the house with cleaning fumes, and he sent me here to bring you back to him. Follow me down. So now, after all the years of grief, you two can embark, loving hearts, along the road to joy. Look, your dreams put off so long come true at last. He's back alive, home at his hearth, and found you. Found his son still here. And all those suitors who did him wrong, he's paid them back. He has, right in his own house. Hush, dear woman, guarded Penelope cautioned her at once. Don't laugh, don't cry in triumph, not yet. You know how welcome the sight of him would be to all in the house, and to me most of all, and the son we bore together. But the story can't be true, not as you tell it. No, it must be God who's killed our brazen friends, up in arms at their outrage, heartbreaking crimes. They'd no regard for any man on earth, good or bad, who chanced to come their way. So thanks to their reckless work, they die their deaths. Odysseus, far from Achaea now, he's lost all hope of coming home. He's lost and gone himself. Child, the devoted old nurse protested, what nonsense you let slip through your teeth. Here's your husband, warming his hands at his own hearth. Here, and you say he'll never come home again. Always the soul of trust. I'll write this too. I'll give you a sign, a proof that's plain as day. That scar made years ago by a boar's white tusk. I spotted the scar myself and I washed his feet. And I tried to tell you, but he, the crafty rascal, clamped his hand on my mouth. I couldn't say a word. Follow me down now. I'll stake my life on it. If I am lying to you, kill me with 1,000 knives of pain. Dear old nurse, composed Penelope responded, deep as you are, my friend, you'll find it hard to plumb the pains of the everlasting gods. All the same, let's go and join my son so I can see the suitors lying dead and see the one who killed them. With that thought, Penelope started down from her lofty room, her heart in turmoil, torn. Should she keep her distance, probe her husband, or rush up to the man at once and kiss his head and cling to both his hands? As soon as she stepped across the stone threshold, slipping in, she took a seat at the closest wall, and radiant in the firelight faced Odysseus now. There he sat, leaning against the great central column, eyes fixed on the ground, waiting, poised for whatever words his hardy wife might say when she caught sight of him. A long while she sat in silence, numbing wonder filled her heart as her eyes explored his face. One moment he seemed Odysseus to the life, and next, no, he was not the man she knew. A huddled mass of rags was all she saw. "O mother," Telemachus reproached her, "cruel mother, you with your heart-to-heart. Why do you spurn my father so? Why don't you sit beside him, engage him, ask him questions? What other wife could have a spirit so unbending? Holding back from her husband, home at last for her, after bearing 20 years of brutal struggle. Your heart was always harder than a rock." "My child," Penelope, well aware, explained, "I am stunned with wonder, powerless. I cannot speak to him, ask him questions, look him in the eyes. But if he is truly Odysseus, home at last, make no mistake. We two will know each other even better. We two have secret signs, known to us both but hidden from the world." Odysseus, long enduring, broke into a smile and turned to his son with pointed, winging words. "Leave your mother here in the hall to test me, as she will. She soon will know me better. Now, because I'm filthy, wearing such grimy rags, she spurns me. Your mother still can't bring herself to believe I am her husband. But you and I put heads together. What's our best defense? When someone kills a lone man in the realm who leaves behind him no great band of avengers, Still the killer flees, goodbye to kin and country. But we brought down the best of the island's princes, the pillars of Ithaca. Weigh it well, I urge you. Look to it all yourself now, father, his son deferred at once. You are the best on earth, they say, when it comes to mapping tactics. No one, no mortal man can touch you there. But we're behind you, hearts intent on battle. Nor do I think you'll find us short on courage, long as our strength will last. Then here's our plan. The master of tactics said, I think it's best. First go and wash, and pull fresh tunics on, and tell the maids in the hall to dress well too. Let the inspired bard take up his ringing lyre, and lead off for us all a dance so full of heart that whoever hears the strains outside the gates, passerby on the road, neighbor round about, will think it's a wedding feast that's underway. No news of the suitor's death must spread through town till we have slipped away to our own estates, our orchard green with trees. There we'll see what winning strategy Zeus will hand us then. They hung on his words and moved to orders smartly. First they washed and pulled fresh tunics on. The women arrayed themselves. The inspired bard struck up his resounding lyre and stirred in all a desire for dance and song. The lovely lifting beat till the great house echoed round to the measured tread of dancing men in motion, women sashed and lithe. And whoever heard the strains outside would say, a miracle, someone's married the queen at last. One of her 100 suitors. That callous woman, too faithless to keep her lord and master's house to the bitter end, till he came sailing home. So they'd say, blind to what had happened. The great-hearted Odysseus was home again at last. The maid Eurynomy bathed him, rubbed him down with olive oil, and drew around him a royal cape and choice tunic too. And Athena crowned the man with beauty, head to foot, made him taller to all eyes, his build more massive, yes, and down from his brow the great goddess ran his curls like thick hyacinth clusters full of blooms. As a master craftsman washes gold over beaten silver, a man the god of fire and Queen Athena trained in every fine technique, and finishes off his latest effort handsome work, so she lavished splendor over his head and shoulders now. He stepped from his bath, glistening like a god, and back he went to the seat that he had left, and facing his wife declared, strange woman, so hard the gods of Olympus made you harder than any other woman in the world. What other wife could have a spirit so unbending, holding back from her husband, home at last for her after bearing 20 years of brutal struggle? Come, nurse, make a bed. I'll sleep alone. She has a heart of iron in her breast. Strange man, wary Penelope said. I'm not so proud, so scornful, nor am I overwhelmed by your quick change. You look, how well I know, the way he looked, setting sail from Ithaca years ago, aboard the long-oared ship. Come, Eurycleia, move the sturdy bedstead out of our bridal chamber, that room the master built with his own hands. Take it out now, sturdy bed that it is, and spread it deep with fleece, blankets and lustrous throws to keep him warm. Putting her husband to the proof, but Odysseus blazed up in fury, lashing out at his loyal wife. Woman, your words, they cut me to the core. Who could move my bed? Impossible task, even for some skilled craftsman, lest God came down in person, quick to lend a hand, lifted it out with ease and moved it elsewhere. Not a man on earth, not even at peak strength, would find it easy to prise it up and shift it, no. A great sign, a hallmark lies in its construction. I know, I built it myself. No one else. There was a branching olive tree inside our court, grown to its full prime, the bold like a column, thick set. Around it I built my bedroom, finished off the walls with good tight stonework, roofed it over soundly, and added doors, hung well and snugly wedged. Then I lopped the leafy crown of the olive, clean cutting the stump bare from roots up. Planting it round with a bronze smoothing adze, I had the skill. I shaped it plumb to the lines to make my bedposts, bored the holes it needed with an auger. Working from there, I built my bed, start to finish. I gave it ivory inlays, gold and silver fittings, wove the straps across it, oxhide gleaming red. There's our secret sign, I tell you, our life story. Does the bed, my lady, still stand planted firm? I don't know. Or has someone chopped away that olive trunk and hauled our bedstead off? Living proof. Penelope felt her knees go slack, her heart surrender, recognizing the strong, clear signs Odysseus offered. She dissolved in tears, rushed to Odysseus, flung her arms around his neck, and kissed his head and cried out, Odysseus, don't flare up at me now. Not you, always the most understanding man alive. The gods. It was the gods who sent us sorrow. They grudged us both life in each other's arms, from the heady zest of youth to the stoop of old age. But don't fault me, angry with me now because I failed, at the first glimpse to greet you, hold you so. In my heart of hearts I always cringe with fear. Some fraud might come, beguile me with his talk. The world is full of the sort, cunning ones who plot their own dark ends. Remember Helen of Argos, Zeus's daughter? Would she have sported so in a stranger's bed if she had dreamed that Achaea's sons were doomed to fight and die to bring her home again? Some gods spurred her to do her shameless work. Not till then did her mind conceive that madness, blinding madness that caused her anguish, ours as well. But now since you have revealed such overwhelming proof, the secret sign of our bed, which no one's ever seen but you and I and a single handmaid, Actorus, the servant my father gave me when I came, who kept the doors of our room you built so well. You've conquered my heart at last. The more she spoke, the more a deep desire for tears welled up inside his breast. He wept as he held his wife and loved, the soul of loyalty in his arms at last. Joy, warm as the joy that shipwrecked sailors feel when they clutch sight of land, Poseidon has struck their well-rigged ship on the open sea with gale winds and crushing walls of waves, and only a few escape swimming, struggling out of the frothing surf to reach shore, their bodies crusted with salt but buoyed up with joy as they plant their feet on solid ground again, spared a deadly fate. So joyous now to her the sight of her husband, vivid in her gaze, that her white arms, embracing his neck, would never for a moment let him go. Dawn with her rose-red fingers might have shone upon their tears, if with her glinting eyes Athena had not thought of one more thing. She held back the night. The night lingered long at the western edge of the earth, while in the east she reigned in dawn of the golden throne at ocean's banks, commanding her not to yoke the wind-swift team that brings men light, blazing aurora, the young colts that race the morning on. Yet now Odysseus, seasoned veteran, said to his wife, "Dear woman, we have still not reached the end of all our trials. One more labor lies in store, boundless, laden with danger, great and long, and I must brave it out from start to finish. The ghost of Tiresias prophesied to me the day that I went to the house of death to learn our best route home, my comrades and my own. But come, let's go to bed, dear woman. At long last, delight in sleep, delight in each other, come." "If it's bed you want," reserved Penelope replied, "it's bed you'll have, whenever the spirit moves you. Now that the gods have brought you home again to native land, your grand and gracious house. But since you've alluded to it, since God has put it in your mind, please, tell me about this trial still to come. I'm bound to learn of it later, I'm sure. What's the harm if I hear of it tonight?" "Still so strange," Odysseus, the old master of stories, answered. "Why again? Why force me to tell you all?" "Well, tell I shall. I'll hide nothing now. But little joy it will bring you, I'm afraid, as little joy for me. The prophet said that I must rove through towns on towns of men, that I must carry a well-planed oar until I come to a people who know nothing of the sea, whose food is never seasoned with salt, strangers all to ships with their crimson prows and long slim oars, wings that make ships fly. And here is my sign," he told me, clear, so clear I cannot miss it, and I will share it with you now. "When another traveler falls in with me and calls that weight across my shoulder a fan of winnow grain, then," he told me, "I must plant my oar in the earth and sacrifice fine beasts to the Lord God of the sea, Poseidon, a ram, a bull, and a rampaging wild boar. Then journey home and render noble offerings up to the deathless gods who rule the vaulting skies, to all the gods in order. And at last my own death will steal upon me. A gentle, painless death. Far from the sea it comes to take me down, borne down with the years in ripe old age, with all my people here in blessed peace around me. All this, the prophet said, will come to pass." And so, Penelope said in great wisdom, "If the gods will really grant a happier old age, there's hope we'll escape our trials at last." So husband and wife confided in each other, while nurse and Eurynomy, under the flaring brands, were making up the bed with coverings deep and soft, and working briskly, as soon as they made it snug. Back to her room, the old nurse went to sleep as Eurynomy, their attendant, torch in hand, lighted the royal couple's way to bed, and leading them to their chamber, slipped away. Rejoicing in each other, they returned to their bed, the old familiar place they loved so well. Now Telemachus, the cowherd, and the swineherd rested their dancing feet, and the women do the same. And across the shadowed hall the men lay down to sleep. But the royal couple, once they reveled in all the longed-for joys of love, reveled in each other's stories. The radiant woman telling of all she'd borne at home, watching them there, the infernal crowd of suitors, slaughtering herds of cattle and good fat sheep, while keen to win her hand, draining the brooch vats dry of vintage wine. And a great Odysseus told his wife of all the pains he had dealt out to other men and all the hardships he'd endured himself. His story first to last, and she listened on, enchanted. Sleep never sealed her eyes till all was told. He launched in with how he fought the Sissones down, and then how he came to the Lotus Eater's lush green land. Then all the crimes of the Cyclops and how he paid him back for the gallant men the monster ate without a qualm. Then how he visited Iolaus, who gave him a hero's welcome. Then he sent him off, but the homeward run was not his fate, not yet. Some sudden squall snatched him away once more and drove him over the swarming sea, groaning in despair. Then how he moored at Telepolis, where Laestrygonians wrecked his fleet and killed his men at arms. He told her of Circe's cunning magic wiles, and how he voyaged down in his long bench ship to the moldering house of death to consult Tiresias, ghostly seer of Thebes, and he saw old comrades there, and he saw his mother, who bore and reared him as a child. He told how he caught the sirens' voices throbbing in the wind, and how he had scudded past the clashing rocks, past grim Charybdis, past Scylla, whom no rover had ever coasted by home free, and how his shipmates slaughtered the cattle of the sun, and Zeus, the king of thunder, split his racing ship with a reeking bolt and killed his hardy comrades, all his fighting men at a stroke, but he alone escaped their death at sea. He told how he reached Ogygia's shores, and the nymph Calypso held him back, deep in her arching caverns, craving him for a husband, cherished him, vowed to make him immortal, ageless all his days. Yes, but she never won the heart inside him, never. Then how he reached the Phaeacians heavy sailing there, who with all their hearts prized him like a god and sent him off in a ship to his own beloved land, giving him rods and hordes of golden robes. And that was the last he told her, just as sleep overcame him, sleep loosing his limbs, slipping the toils of anguish from his mind. Athena, her eyes afire, had fresh plans. Once she thought he'd had his heart's content of love and sleep at his wife's side, straightway she roused young Dawn from ocean's banks to her golden throne to bring men light, and roused Odysseus too, who rose from a soft bed and advised his wife in parting, "Dear woman, we both have had our fill of trials, you in our house weeping over my journey home, fraught with storms and torment, true, and I, pinned down in pain by Zeus and the other gods, for all my desire blocked from reaching home. But now that we've arrived at our bed together, reunion we yearn for all those years. Look after the things still left me in our house. But as for the flocks those brazen suitors plundered, much I'll recoup myself, making many raids. The rest our fellow Ithacans will supply till all my folds are full of sheep again. But now I must be off to the upland farm, our orchard green with trees to see my father. Good old man, weighed down with so much grief for me. And you, dear woman, sensible as you are, I would advise you still, quick as the rising sun, the news will spread of the suitors that I killed inside the house. So climb to your lofty chamber with your women, sit tight there, see no one, question no one." He strapped his burnished arm around his shoulders, roused Telemachus, the cowherd, and the swineherd, and told them to take up weapons honed for battle. They snapped to commands, harnessed up in bronze, opened the doors and strode out, Odysseus in the lead. By now the daylight covered the land, but Pallas, shrouding them all in darkness, quickly led the four men out of town. Book 24. Peace. Now, Selenian Hermes called away the suitors' ghosts, holding firm in his hand the wand of fine pure gold that enchants the eyes of men whenever Hermes wants, or wakes us up from sleep. With a wave of this, he stirred and led them on, and the ghosts trailed after with high, thin cries, as bats cry in the depths of a dark haunted cavern, shrilling, flittering, wild when one drops from the chain, slipped from the rock face, while the rest cling tight. So with their high, thin cries the ghosts flocked now, and Hermes the healer led them on, And down the dank, moldering paths, and past the ocean streams they went, and past the white rock and the sun's western gates, and past the land of dreams. And they soon reached the fields of asphodel, where the dead, the burned-out wraiths of mortals, make their home. There they found the ghost of Peleus' son Achilles, Patroclus, fearless Antilochus, and great Ajax too, the first in stature, first in build and bearing of all the Argives after Peleus' matchless son. They had grouped around Achilles' ghost, and now the shade of Atreus' son Agamemnon marched toward them, fraught with grief and flanked by all his comrades, troops of his men at arms who died beside him, who met their fate in Lord Aegisthus' halls. Achilles' ghost was first to greet him. Agamemnon, you were the one, we thought, of all our fighting princes. Zeus, who loves the light, favored most all your days, because you commanded such a powerful host of men on the fields of Troy where we Achaeans suffered. But you were doomed to encounter fate so early. You too. Yet no one born escapes its deadly force. If only you had died your death in the full flush of the glory you had mastered, died on Trojan soil. Then all united, Achaea would have raised your tomb, and you'd have won your son great fame for years to come. Not so. You are fated to die a wretched death. And the ghost of Atrides Agamemnon answered, Son of Peleus, great godlike Achilles, happy man, you died on the fields of Troy, a world away from home. And the best of Trojan and Argive champions died around you, fighting for your corpse. And you, there you lay in the whirling dust, overpowered in all your power, and wiped from memory all your horsemen's skills. That whole day we fought, we'd never have stopped if Zeus had not stopped us with sudden gales. Then we bore you out of the fighting onto the ships. We laid you down on a litter, cleansed your handsome flesh with warm water and soothing oils. Around your body, droops of Danans wept hot tears and cut their locks. Hearing the news, your mother, Thetis, rose from the sea, immortal sea nymphs in her wake, and a strange unearthly cry came over the ocean. Terror gripped Achaea's armies. They would have leapt in panic, boarded the long hollow ships, if one man, deep in his age-old wisdom, had not checked them. Nestor. From the first, his counsel always seemed the best, and now, concerned for the ranks, he rose and shouted, Hold fast, Argives, son of Achaea, don't run now. This is Achilles' mother rising from the sea with all her immortal sea nymphs. She longs to join her son who died in battle. That stopped our panicked forces in their tracks, as the old man of the sea's daughters gathered round you, wailing heartsick, dressed you in ambrosial, deathless robes, and the muses, 9 in all, voice to voice in choirs, that vibrant music rising, raised your dirge. Not one soldier would you have seen dry-eyed. The muses' song so pierced us to the heart. For 17 days unbroken, days and nights, we mourned you, immortal gods and mortal men. And the 18th dawn, we gave you to the flames, and slaughtered around your body droves of fat sheep and shambling longhorn cattle, and you were burned in the garments of the gods, and laved with soothing oils, and honey running sweet, and long cortege of Argive heroes paraded in review, in battle armor round your blazing pyre. Men in chariots, men on foot, a resounding roar went up. Once the god of fire had burned your corpse to ash. At first light we gathered your white bones, Achilles, carried them in strong, neat wine and seasoned oils. Your mother gave us a gold 2-handled urn, a gift from Dionysus, she said, a masterwork of the famous smith, the god of fire. Your white bones rest in that, my brilliant Achilles, mixed with the bones of dead Patroclus, Menetius' son, apart from those of Antilochus, whom you treasured more than all other comrades, once Patroclus died. Over your bones we reared a grand noble tomb, devoted veterans all, Achaea's combat forces. High on its jutting headland over the Hellespont's broad reach, a landmark glimpsed from far out at sea, by men of our town, of our own day and men of days to come. And then, your mother, begging the gods for priceless trophies, set them out in the ring for all our champions. You in your day have witnessed funeral games for many heroes, games to honor the death of kings, when young men cinch their belts, tense to win some prize. But if you laid eyes on these, it would have thrilled your heart. Magnificent trophies of the goddess, glistening-footed Thetis, held out in your honor. You are dear to the gods, so even in death your name will never die. Great glory is yours, Achilles, for all time in the eyes of mankind. But what joy for me when the coil of war had wound down. For my return, Zeus hatched a pitiful death at the hands of Aegisthus and my accursed wife. As they exchanged the stories of their fates, Hermes the guide and giant killer drew up close to both, leading down the ghosts of the suitors King Odysseus killed. Struck by the sight, the two went up to them right away. The ghost of Atreus' son, Agamemnon, recognized the noted prince Amphimedon, Menelaus' dear son, who received him once in Ithaca at his home, and Atreus' ghost called out to his old friend now, Amphimedon, what disaster brings you down to the dark world? All of you, good picked men, and all in your prime. No captain out to recruit the best in any city could have chosen better. What laid you low? Wrecked in the ships when Lord Poseidon roused some punishment blast of gales and heavy breakers? Or did ranks of enemies mow you down on land as you tried to raid and cut off herds and flocks, or fought to win their city, take their women? Answer me, tell me. I was once your guest. Don't you recall the day I came to visit your house in Ithaca? King Menelaus came too, to urge Odysseus to sail with us in the ships on our campaign to Troy. And the long, slow voyage, crossing wastes of ocean, cost us 1 whole month. That's how hard it was to bring him round, Odysseus, raider of cities. Famous Atreides, Amphimedon's ghost called back, Lord of men, Agamemnon. I remember it all, your majesty, as you say. I will tell you, start to finish, the story of our death, the brutal end contrived to take us off. We were courting the wife of Odysseus, gone so long. She neither spurned nor embraced the marriage she despised. No, she simply planned our death, our black doom. This was her latest masterpiece of guile. She set up a great loom in the royal halls, and she began to weave, and the weaving fine spun the yarns endless, and she would lead us on. Young men, my suitors, now that King Odysseus is no more, go slowly, keen as you are to marry me, until I can finish off this web. So my weaving won't all fray and come to nothing. This is a shroud for old Laertes, for that day when the deadly fate that lays us out at last will take him down. I dread the shame my countrywomen would heap upon me, yes, if a man of such wealth should lie in state without a shroud for cover. Her very words, and despite our pride and passion, we believed her. So by day she weave at her great and growing web. By night, by the light of torches she set beside her, she would unravel all she'd done. 3 whole years she deceived us blind, seduced us with this scheme. Then when the wheeling seasons brought the 4th year on, and the months waned and the long days came round once more, one of her women, in on the queen's secret, told the truth, and we caught her in the act, unweaving her gorgeous web. So she finished it off, against her will. We forced her. But just as she bound off that great shroud and washed it, spread it out, glistening like the sun or the moon, just then some wicked spirit brought Odysseus back, from God knows where, to the edge of his estate where the swineherd kept his pigs. And back, too, to the same place came Odysseus' own dear son, scudding home in the black ship from sandy Pylos. The pair of them schemed our doom, our death trap, then lit out for town. Telemachus first, in fact. Odysseus followed. Later, led by the swineherd and clad in tatters, looking for all the world like an old and broken beggar, hunched on a stick, his body wrapped in shameful rags. Disguised so none of us, not even the older ones, could spot that tramp for the man he really was, bursting in on us there, out of the blue. No. We attacked him, blows and insults flying fast, and he took it all for a time in his own house. All the taunts and blows, he had a heart of iron. But once the will of thundering Zeus had roused his blood, he and Telemachus bore the burnished weapons off and stowed them deep in a storeroom, shot the bolts, and he, the soul of cunning, told his wife to set the great bow and the gleaming iron axes out before the suitors, all of us doomed now, to test our skill and bring our slaughter on. Not one of us had the strength to string that powerful weapon. All of us fell far short of what it took. But then, when the bow was coming round to Odysseus' hands, we raised the hue and cry. He must not have it, no matter how he begged. Only Telemachus urged him to take it up, and once he got it in his clutches, long-suffering great Odysseus strung his bow with ease and shot through all the axes. Then, vaulting onto the threshold, stood there poised, and pouring his flashing arrows out before him, glaring for the kill. He cut Antinous down, then shot his painful arrows into the rest of us, aiming straight and true. And down we went, corpse on corpse in droves. Clearly, a god was driving him and all his henchmen, routing us headlong in their fury down the hall, wheeling into the slaughter, slashing left and right, and grisly screams broke from skulls cracked open, the whole floor washed with blood. So we died, Agamemnon. Our bodies lie untended even now, strewn in Odysseus' palace. They know nothing yet, the kin in our houses who might wash our wounds of clotted gore and lay us out and mourn us. These are the solemn honors of the dead. Happy Odysseus, Agamemnon's ghost cried out. Son of old Laertes, mastermind, what a fine, faithful wife you won. What good sense resided in your Penelope. How well Icarius' daughter remembered you, Odysseus, the man she married once. The fame of her great virtue will never die. The immortal gods will lift a song for all mankind, glorious song in praise of self-possessed Penelope. A far cry from the daughter of Tyndareus, Clytemnestra, what outrage she committed, killing the man she married once. Yet, yes, and the song men sing of her will ring with loathing. She brands with a foul name the breed of womankind, even the honest ones to come. So they traded stories, the two ghosts standing there in the house of death, far in the hidden depths below the earth. Odysseus and his men had stridden down from town and quickly reached Laertes' large, well-tended farm that the old king himself had wrestled from the wilds years ago, laboring long and hard. His lodge was here, and around it stretched a row of shed where field hands, bondsmen, who did his bidding, sat and ate and slept. And an old Sicilian woman was in charge, who faithfully looked after her aged master, out on his good estate remote from town. Odysseus told his servants and his son, "Into the timbered lodge now. Go, quickly. Kill us the fattest porker, fix our meal. And I will put my father to the test. See if the old man knows me now on sight, or fails to after 20 years apart." With that he passed his armor to his men, and in they went at once, his son as well. Odysseus wandered off, approaching the thriving vineyard, searching, picking his way down to the great orchard, searching, but found neither Dolius nor his sons nor any hand. They'd just gone off, old Dolius in the lead, to gather stones for a dry retaining wall, to shore the vineyard up. But he did find his father alone, on that well-worked plot, spading around sapling, clad in filthy rags, in a patched, unseemly shirt, and round his shins he had some ox-hide leggings strapped, patched too, to keep from getting scraped, and gloves on his hands to fight against the thorns, and on his head he wore a goatskin skull cap, to cultivate his misery that much more. Long enduring Odysseus, catching sight of him now, a man worn down with years, his heart racked with sorrow, halted under a branching pear tree, paused and wept. Debating, head and heart, what should he do now? Kiss and embrace his father, pour out the long tale, how he had made the journey home to native land, or probe him first and test him every way. Torn, mulling it over, this seemed better. Test the old man first, reproach him with words that cut him to the core. Convinced, Odysseus went right up to his father. Laertes was digging around the sapling, head bent low, as his famous offspring hovered over him and began. "You want no skill, old man, at tending a garden. All's well kept here, not one thing in the plot, no plant, no fig, no pear, no olive, no vine, not a vegetable, lacks your tender, loving care. But I must say, don't be offended now, your plants are doing better than yourself. Enough to be stooped with age, but look how squalid you are, those shabby rags. Surely it's not for sloth your master lets you go to seed. There's nothing of slave about your build or bearing. I have eyes, you look like a king to me. The sort entitled to bathe, sup well, and sleep in a soft bed. That's the right and pride of you old-timers. Come now, tell me, no uncertain terms. Whose slave are you? Whose orchard are you tending? And tell me this. I must be absolutely sure. This place I've reached, is it truly Ithaca? Just as that fellow told me just now. I fell in with him on the road there. Clumsy, none too friendly, couldn't trouble himself to hear me out or give me a decent answer when I asked about a long-lost friend of mine, whether he's still alive somewhere in Ithaca, or dead and gone already, lost in the house of death. Do you want to hear his story? Listen, catch my drift. I once played host to a man in my own country. He'd come to my door, the most welcome guest from foreign parts I ever entertained. He claimed he came of good Ithacan stock. Said his father was Arcesius' son, Laertes. So I took the new arrival under my own roof. I gave him a hero's welcome, treated him in style. Stores in our palace made for princely entertainment. I gave him my friend some gifts to fit his station, handed him 7 bars of well-wrought gold, a mixing bowl of solid silver etched with flowers, a dozen cloaks, unlined and light, a dozen rugs, and as many full-cut capes and shirts as well, and to top it off, 4 women, perfect beauties, skilled in crafts. He could pick them out himself. Stranger, his father answered, weeping softly, the land you've reached is the one you're after, true, but it's in the grip of reckless, lawless men. And as for the gifts you showered on your guest, you gave them all for nothing. But if you'd found him alive here in Ithaca, he would have replied in kind with gift for gift, and entertained you warmly before he sent you off. That's the old custom, when one has led the way. But tell me, please, in no uncertain terms, how many years ago did you host the man, that unfortunate guest of yours, my son? There was a son, or was he all a dream? That most unlucky man, whom now I fear, far from his own soil and those he loves, the fish have swallowed down on the high seas, or birds and beasts on land have made their meal. Nor could the ones who bore him, mother, father, wrap his corpse in a shroud and mourn him deeply. Nor could his warm, generous wife, so self-possessed Penelope, ever keen for her husband on his deathbed, the fit and proper way to close his eyes at last. These are the solemn honors owed the dead. But tell me your own story, that I'd like to know. Who are you? Where are you from? Your city? Your parents? Where does the ship lie moored that brought you here? Your hardy shipmates, too. Or did you arrive as a passenger aboard some stranger's craft, and men who put you ashore have pulled away? The whole tale, his crafty son replied. I'll tell you start to finish. I come from Romer town. My home's a famous place. My father's unsparing, son of old King Pain. And my name's Man of Strife. I sailed from Sicily, aye, but some ill wind blew me here off course, much against my will. And my ship lies moored off at farmlands far from town. As for Odysseus, well, 5 years have passed since he left my house and put my land behind him. Luckless man. But the birds were good as he launched out, all on the right, and I rejoiced as I sent him off, and he rejoiced in sailing. We had high hopes we'd meet again as guests, as old friends, and trade some shining gifts. At those words, a black cloud of grief came shrouding over Laertes. Both hands clawing the ground for dirt and grime, he poured it over his grizzled head, sobbing in spasms. Odysseus' heart shuddered. A sudden twinge went shooting up through his nostrils. Watching his dear father struggle, he sprang toward him, kissed him, hugged him, crying, Father, I am your son, myself, the man you're seeking. Home after 20 years, on native ground at last. Hold back your tears, your grief. Let me tell you the news, but we must hurry. I've cut the suitors down in our own house. I pay them back their outrage, vicious crimes. Odysseus, Laertes, catching his breath, found words to answer. You're truly my son. Odysseus home at last. Give me a sign, some proof. I must be sure. This scar first. Quick to the mark, his son said, look at this. The wound I took from the boar's white tusk on Mount Parnassus. There you'd sent me, you and mother, to see her fond old father, Autolycus, and collect the gifts he vowed to give me once when he came to see us here. Or these trees, let me tell you the trees you gave me years ago. Here on this well-worked plot. I begged you for everything I saw, little boy trailing through the orchard, picking our way among these trees, and you named them one by one. You gave me 13 pear, 10 apple trees, and 40 figs, and promised to give me, look, 50 vine rows bearing hard on each other's heels, clusters of grapes year-round at every grade of ripeness, mellowed as Zeus's seasons weigh them down. Living proof. And Laertes' knees went slack, his heart surrendered, recognizing the strong, clear signs Odysseus offered. He threw his arms round his own dear son, fainting as hardy great Odysseus hugged him to his heart until he regained his breath, came back to life and cried out, Father Zeus, you god of Olympus, you still rule on high if those suitors have truly paid in blood for all their reckless outrage. Oh, but now my heart quakes with fear that all the Ithacans will come down on us in a pack at any time and rush the alarm through every island town. There's nothing to fear, his canny son replied. Put it from your mind. Let's make for your lodge beside the orchard here. I sent Telemachus on ahead, the cowherd, swineherd too, to fix a hasty meal. So the two went home, confided all the way. Arriving at the ample timbered lodge, they found Telemachus, with the two herdsmen carving sides of meat and mixing ruddy wine. Before they ate, the Sicilian serving woman bathed their master, Laertes, his spirits high in his own room, rubbed him down with oil, round his shoulders drew a fresh new cloak, and Athena stood beside him, fleshing out the limbs of the old commander, made him taller to all eyes, his build more massive, stepping from his bath. So his own son gazed at him, wonderstruck. Face to face he seemed a deathless god. Father, Odysseus' words had wings. Surely one of the everlasting gods has made you taller, stronger, shining in my eyes. Facing his son, the wise old man returned. If only, Father Zeus, Athena, and Lord Apollo, I were the man I was, king of the Cephallenians, when I sacked the city of Nericus, sturdy fortress just on its jutting cape. If I'd been young in arms last night in our house, with harness on my back, standing beside you, fighting off the suitors, how many I would have cut the knees from under. The heart inside you would have leapt for joy. So father and son confirmed each other's spirits, and then with the roasting done, the meals set out. The others took their seats on chairs and stools, were just putting their hands to bread and meat, when old Dolius trudged in with his sons, worn out from the field work. The old Sicilian had gone and fetched them home. The mother who reared the boys intended Dolius well, now that the years had ground the old man down. When they saw Odysseus, knew him in their bones, they stopped in their tracks, staring, struck dumb. But the king waved them on with a warm and easy air. Sit down to your food, old friend. Snap out of your wonder. We've been cooling our heels here long enough, eager to get our hands on all this pork, hoping you'd all troop in at a moment. Spreading his arms, Dolius rushed up to him, clutched Odysseus by the wrist, and kissed his hand. Greeting his king now with a burst of winging words. Dear master, you're back. The answer to our prayers. We'd lost all hope, but the gods have brought you home. Welcome, health. The skies rain blessings on you. But tell me the truth now. This I'd like to know. Shrewd Penelope, has she heard you're home? Or should we send a messenger? She knows by now, old man. His wily master answered brusquely. Why busy yourself with that? So Dolius went back to his sanded stool, his sons too. Pressing around the famous king, greeted Odysseus warmly, grasped him by a hand, then took their seats in order by their father. But now, as they fell to supper in the lodge, rumor the herald sped like wildfire throughout the city, crying out the news of the suitors' bloody death and doom. Amassing from every quarter as they glistened, kinsmen milled with wails and moans of grief before Odysseus' palace. And then they carried out the bodies, every family buried their own. And the dead from the other towns, they loaded onto the rapid ships for crews to ferry back again, each to his own home. Then in a long mourning file they moved to assembly where, once they grouped, crowding the meeting grounds, old Lord Eupeithes rose in their midst to speak out. Unforgettable sorrow wrung his heart for his son, Antinous, the first the great Odysseus killed. In tears for the one he lost, he stood and cried, My friends, what a mortal blow this man has dealt to all our island people. Those fighters, many and brave, he led away in his curved ships. He lost the ships and he lost the men, and back he comes again to kill the best of our Cephallenian princes. Quick, after him before he flees to Pylos or holy Elis, where Appians rule in power. Up, attack, or we'll hang our heads forever, all disgraced, even by generations down the years, if we don't punish the murderers of our brothers and our sons. Why? Life would lose its relish, for me at least. I'd rather die at once and go among the dead. Attack, before the assassins cross the sea and leave us in their wake. He closed in tears, and compassion ran through every Achaean there. Suddenly Medon and the inspired bard approached them, fresh from Odysseus' house where they had just awakened. They strode into the crowds. Amazement took each man, but the herald Medon spoke in all his wisdom. Hear me, men of Ithaca. Not without the hand of the deathless gods did Odysseus do these things. Myself, I saw an immortal fighting at his side, like mentor to the life. I saw the same god now in front of Odysseus, spurring him on, now stampeding the suitors through the hall. Crazed with fear, and down they went in droves. Terror gripped them all, their faces ashen white. At last the old warrior, Halitherses' master's son, who alone could see the days behind and days ahead, rose up and spoke, distraught for each man there. Hear me, men of Ithaca, hear what I have to say. Thanks to your own craven hearts, these things were done. You never listened to me, your good commander mentor. You never put up a stop to your son's senseless folly. What fine work they did, so blind, so reckless. carving away the wealth, affronting the wife of a great and famous man, telling themselves that he'd return no more. So let things rest now. Listen to me for once. I say don't attack, else some will draw the lightning on their necks. So he urged, and some held fast to their seats, but more than half sprang up with war cries now. They had no taste for the prophet's sane plan. Winning, Eupeithes quickly won them over. They ran for armor, and once they harnessed up in burnished bronze, they grouped in ranks before the terraced city. Eupeithes led them on in their foolish mad campaign, certain he would avenge the slaughter of his son, but the father was not destined to return. He'd meet his death in battle then and there. Athena at this point made appeals to Zeus. Father, son of Cronos, our high and mighty king, now let me ask you a question. Tell me the secrets hidden in your mind. Will you prolong the pain, the cruel fighting here, or hand down pacts of peace between both sides? My child, Zeus, who marshals the thunderheads, replied, why do you pry and probe me so intently? Come now, wasn't the plan your own? You conceived it yourself. Odysseus should return and pay the traitors back. Do as your heart desires. But let me tell you how it should be done. Now that royal Odysseus has taken his revenge, let both sides seal their pacts, and he shall reign for life. And let us purge their memories of the bloody slaughter of their brothers and their sons. Let them be friends, devoted as in the old days. Let peace and wealth come cresting through the land. So Zeus decreed, and launched Athena already poised for action. Down she swept from Olympus's craggy peaks. But then Odysseus's men had their fill of hardy fare, and the seasoned captain said, one of you go outside, see if they're closing in. A son of Dolius snapped to his command, ran to the door and saw them all too close, and shouted back to Odysseus, they're on top of us, to arms and fast. Up they sprang and strapped themselves in armor. 3 men with Odysseus, Dolius' 6 sons, and Dolius and Laertes clapped on armor too, gray as they were, but they would fight if forced. Once they had all harnessed up in burnished bronze, they opened the doors and strode out, Odysseus in the lead. And now, taking the build and voice of Mentor, Zeus' daughter Athena marched right in. The good soldier Odysseus, thrilled to see her, turned to his son and said in haste, Telemachus, you'll learn soon enough, as you move up to fight where champions strive to prove themselves the best, not to disgrace your father's line a moment. In battle prowess we've excelled for ages all across the world. Telemachus reassured him. Now you'll see, if you care to watch, father. Now I'm fired up. Disgrace, you say? I won't disgrace your line. Laertes called out in deep delight. What a day for me, dear gods, what joy, my son and my grandson vying over courage. Laertes, goddess Athena, rushed beside him, eyes ablaze. Son of Archesius, dearest of all my comrades, say a prayer to the bright-eyed girl and father Zeus, then brandish your long spear and wing it fast. Athena breathed enormous strength in the old man. He lifted a prayer to mighty Zeus' daughter, brandished his spear a moment, winged it fast to hit Eupeithes, pierced his bronze-sided helmet that failed to block the bronze point tearing through. Down Eupeithes crashed, his armor clanging against his chest. Odysseus and his gallant son charged straight at the front lines, slashing away with swords, with 2-edged spears, and now they would have killed them all, cut them off from home, if Athena, daughter of storming Zeus, had not cried out, in a piercing voice that stopped all fighters cold, hold back, you men of Ithaca, back from brutal war. Break off, shed no more blood, make peace at once. So Athena commanded. Terror blanched their faces, they went limp with fear, weapons slipped from their hands, and strewed the ground at the goddess's ringing voice. They spun in flight to the city, wild to save their lives, but loosing a savage cry, the long-enduring great Odysseus gathered all his force, swooped like a soaring eagle, just as the son of Cronos hurled a reeking bolt that fell at her feet. The mighty father's daughter and blazing-eyed Athena wheeled on Odysseus, crying, Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, master of exploits, hold back now. Call a halt to the great leveler war. Don't court the rage of Zeus who rules the world. So she commanded. He obeyed her, glad at heart, and Athena handed down her pacts of peace between both sides in all the years to come. The daughter of Zeus whose shield is storm and thunder, yes, but the goddess still kept Mentor's voice, build and voice. Imagine having to commit all that to memory. It's pretty good.